And welcome to Pro Baseball Today here on SportsGrid. Craig Mish, Tom Vecchio for the next couple hours talking Major League Baseball with you. We'll preview the upcoming week of games, which is kind of hard to do because we've got a Major League Baseball trade deadline coming tomorrow in less than 24 hours away. A little bit more than that, I guess, depends on your clock because the trade deadline has officially begun. And Tom, officially, usually the last trade goes down to the very end. And so I like to point out of things that I certainly am wrong about. And I look, I'm not wrong about Skubal going to the Dodgers. I never had a prediction there, but I thought that Skubal would go, Tariq Skubal would be traded to the Dodgers from the Tigers Monday at 5:59 p.m., somewhere along those lines. But I don't know if I'm wrong. I guess here's what I would ask, Tom, because it seems to me that this was the best that the Dodgers were going to give up and the best that the Tigers could get. They got 3 prospects back in return. Zahir Hope, Brady Smith, and River Ryan seems to me looks pretty familiar to a lot of the other deals the Dodgers have made in the past, like Manny Machado and Max Scherzer. The Dodgers give up probably a little bit more than other teams are willing to give up. But that's my take this morning, Tom, is that I wonder how this happened on Saturday night as opposed to the Dodgers literally waiting this out like an auction until Monday. I guess the sense I get, Tom, is that this was going to be the very best offer. And I know that's getting a lot of, fans in Tampa and Milwaukee, upset today, asking themselves, how could we not give up more than this? But the truth is, Tom, we really don't know what prospects are, right? Like at the end of the day, we have no idea who's going to be what.
Right. And, there's a thousand thoughts going on when it comes to this deal. The verbiage that we heard from the Tigers earlier in the season is they want impact players or high level prospects. There's a thought saying, how could other teams not exceed this? It's not the Dodgers' fault or the Tigers' fault that another team, the Brewers, the Braves, can step in and give them 3 or 4 prospects or 5 prospects that are higher level and higher rated, et cetera, et cetera. We're looking at a picture of River Ryan, who has 4 MLB games under his belt with 20 innings pitched. That's, we don't know if he's good or bad. It's just too small of a sample size. We have Zahir Hope, who's in Double-A, who's not going to make an impact for 2 or 3 seasons. And then we have Brady Smith, who's in High A, who's legitimately not going to make an impact for, at best, 4 seasons. So we're talking about a very boring-ish trade, in my opinion, because I wanted to see a team go out and make an offer that could compete with the Dodgers and also put them alongside to potentially beat the Dodgers. That's what I kept saying about the Brewers, the Braves, the Phillies. They needed to make a roster not just good enough to win a division. You got to make a roster that's good enough to beat the Dodgers. So Skubal goes to the Dodgers. Their rotation looks amazing. He's been amazing this year, even after the elbow surgery. He came back. He's looked great. Really hasn't missed a beat. He could have been on his way to a 3rd straight AL Cy Young if he hadn't missed that much time. Their rotation looks great as of now. It comes down to, how they utilize not just him, but the rest of the rotation to close out the season. And then they have Yamamoto, Skubal, and as a 1-2 going into any playoff series. We don't know if Ohtani is going to pitch to end the season or if he'll just come back and be ready for October. We know that Snell and Glasnow are on their way back. They're mixing in Robleski and Eric Lauer, who have been pretty darn good. And it's a great rotation, and they look like they're the favorites, and they should be the favorites to win the World Series for a 3rd straight year. It's that simple, but it's also unfun from a fan perspective. I wanted to see him go to another team and say, we're taking our best swing to beat the Dodgers right now.
Yeah, look, I there's a lot of thoughts today, and I understand that, the looming CBA is, part of this conversation. And, listen, are there some outlying, stuff with this conversation? Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to say. But look, in the end, Skubal's only making a few $1 million for the rest of the season. Tom, we'll talk to Kevin Walsh about this. But for me, it maybe drives the point home of the disparity of the payroll system, which is that when the Dodgers payroll is $300 million more than the teams that they're in contention with, you can't look at those teams and expect them to give up a lot more than the Dodgers would to make a trade, because those are players they're going to have play for them, especially if it's look, no guy is a guarantee, but Milwaukee and Tampa Bay, they were floating their top prospect each, and they're probably saying to themselves, wait a second, if we give this guy up, we're helping the Dodgers actually in this scenario get better in the future, because they could just take whoever they want and keep going, and we can't. So, from that perspective, I understand it. Yeah, I'm with you a little bit. Like, I'm disappointed, obviously, that some other team is not going to go against it, but it sort of reminds me a little bit for Dodgers fans, Tom, today, how it felt to be living in South Florida as a Miami Heat fan, even though there was a cap at the time, with LeBron James and Chris Bosh and Dwayne Wade. Like, when the Heat got those three players, Tom, I don't know, you tell me, correct me if I'm wrong, it sort of felt like it was the Heat versus everybody else. And everybody was angry that the Heat ended up with LeBron James, and they were angry that it ended up being Chris Bosh. And then all of a sudden, there were some external players who wanted to just join up too, and they ended up getting guys on minimum contracts. I don't know if it's an apples and oranges conversation, but that's when I woke up this morning and I thought to myself, that's how Dodgers fans are feeling today. They're feeling great, and they're like, screw you, it's all about everybody else. But the difference is that this can be fixed. In the NBA, you can't fix when your buddies want to play together. Like, they all manage the money. But in baseball, this can be fixed. There's 26 guys, and you can't win a championship based on 3 players in Major League Baseball. Right. So the fix is, inevitably, if there is a salary cap, this is going to prevent stuff like this happening in the future. It'll never prevent guys like Scooble going to LA. But that's sort of how I woke up thinking this morning about the fandom of what it feels like with everybody being angry. Well, everyone's always angry, but angry on social media today.
Yeah, I would say that's a pretty decent comparison. And I would say this probably goes back further than just today or last night when, the Dodgers, first they trade for Mookie, they get Freddie Freeman, they get Ohtani, they're getting Yamamoto, they're getting Kyle Tucker. So it's not just one trade or one acquisition. It's been happening so frequently. I think that's where fans really start to feel that they're just at a loss with their franchise. And, if we want to use another, NBA comparison, is we've had 8 different winners over the past 8 years, or 7 over 7, whatever it is. And, fans for those teams, every year they go into it saying, like, we have a chance this year. Like, we made some good moves in the offseason. We are going to be in the mix for the playoffs this year. We have a chance to go deep into the playoffs. And, fans of different teams in the MLB can't say that. I don't think many Royals or Twins fans came into the season saying, we have a shot to win it all this year. They're like, oh, maybe, if the Royals, they stay healthy, it's like, oh, maybe we get back to the playoffs this year. Maybe if things go well, this will happen. It's like, there's no teams that are legitimately thinking we have a chance to win it all outside of 5, 6, 7 teams. We're talking about the Dodgers, the Yankees, Mets fans certainly came with a lot of optimism. Braves, Phillies, Cubs, like, those are the franchises that really come in and say, we are going to be in the playoffs. And if things go well, we'll have a chance to win. And that's what's holding back the fans from truly being fully invested every single year. And I think that's part of the problem that needs to be fixed. They need to be willing to say, we have a chance this year. And that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, every team in the NFL, you go into the season, and obviously you look at Miami and Cleveland, and you say to yourselves, okay, they're in like rebuilding situations. That's never going to change in the history of sports, whether it's the NHL, the NBA, baseball, or football. You're going to have a couple of teams that are just going the other direction for a year to retool or rebuild. And by the way, it's happening in the NFL, Arizona too. It's happening in the NFL. It's going to happen in baseball, but you can't have a third or half of the league so far down in terms of payroll because they simply put can't do what the Dodgers do. And the other misnomer, Tom, that I hear is that, oh, anybody can do the Dodgers what they're doing. Do you think that the owners in Major League Baseball are stupid businessmen? Do they want to lose? They're literally losing money to spend like the Dodgers are spending. Can a half a dozen teams do this? Sure, and some are, like the Mets. But generally, like Pittsburgh cannot spend. They don't make the revenue. They don't have the TV contract. The Dodgers TV contract can pay for half of the league's payroll. Like that, it's what it is. It's so much more than everybody else. So the idea that anybody can do this is just not true. I don't know where people come up with this stuff. All right, we'll be back with more of the trades. We'll move off and talk about some of the other things that have happened when we come back next here on Pro Baseball Today.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
It's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is. It is totally on him now and the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to Pro Baseball Today, where Major League Baseball's trade deadline is Monday, and the biggest trade that will happen probably has already happened, with Tariq Skubal going to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And Kevin Walsh will be with us, and throughout the show we will discuss this big trade, but naturally there's a lot of other trades that happened, and there will be a lot that'll happen in the next 30 or some odd hours. Tom, let's get to the idea for the Chicago White Sox and Seattle Mariners. Very peculiar trade, I think, made yesterday, and so let's try to make sense of this. The White Sox get Luis Castillo, who will immediately enter their rotation, and by the way, has a contract that's going to pay him about $20 million next season. Seattle says farewell to a guy that was so great for them for virtually every season he pitched for them, except this year. And Sir Anthony Dominguez, Nolan Jones, and Boston Smith go back to the Mariners, and the Mariners certainly already have a catcher, so Boston Smith would be a player for down the line. Nolan Jones has bounced around for a while. I know he was great for a year in baseball, but he's sort of been hanging around the league. And Sir Anthony Dominguez is a back-end type guy. Maybe he helps Seattle a little bit. But it kind of feels like a strange deal for the White Sox. The White Sox, I don't know how good Luis Castillo is anymore, Tom. I guess that's kind of my question here. And they were willing to take on his salary for next year, too. So maybe this is one of those things, Tom. Could it be, we're going to add some payroll next year. We kind of know who this guy is. We know he fits into our rotation. Maybe we see some things that we could change. Because I think it's fair to say that while the White Sox have had really good pitching with Davis Martin and Burke and Kay and some others, Castillo probably talent-wise at the top, but pitching like a mid-level rotation player right now.
Yeah, this one was certainly an interesting one to see when it first happened, and then, trying to think about why. Castillo hasn't been good this year. But what we do know from him is that he's been pretty sturdy when it comes to volume of innings year in and year out, and maybe that's something the White Sox are looking at. They need a little bit of stability in their rotation. I know there were reports early in the year that Castillo was unhappy with the Mariners when they were doing this piggyback situation out of the bullpen where he, we're getting 4 innings from one guy, he's coming out of the pen, he's got another 4 innings. So maybe there was something behind the scenes that he just wanted a fresh start to move on, maybe trying a resurgence of his career, because to your point, point, he has not been good this year. Nolan Jones, it is what it is. Depth outfielder at best. He had a good year when he was with Colorado. Again, it's just not something that moves the needle. I think really from the White Sox perspective is they just need more stability when it comes to their rotation. Again, they are in a spot to win the division, which is not something that people would say here on August 1st or August 2nd. Coming into the year, they can have Castillo for next year. Maybe they want him to impart some of his veteran knowledge in some of the young pitchers that are good, but they're also largely unproven, and that's something that could be utilized down the road. And they can get 160, 170, 80 innings out of him next year, and that's just good to have in your lineup, even if he's below average, to your point.
Yeah, and the Mariners, it seemingly could be pretty active here in the next day or so because just a lot of rumors surrounding them, maybe trading another pitcher. I don't know what they'd be getting back in return or what they're really even doing here. Are they playing for it? Are they going for it? I'm not sure. George Kirby's name has popped up. Hancock's name has popped up. They have a kid in the minor leagues they want to call up. His name is Cade Anderson, and that's part of this conversation, so we'll see him. And also there was some discussion that Randy Arozarena could be traded, and with the lack of right-handed bats available on the trade market, maybe Arozarena still could be somebody that would be moved. That's what we're doing the show right now. He's still a member of the Mariners. So that's kind of where Seattle is. Tom, let's just put a bow on this one. I'm not really sure. I'm going to wait till after Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern to see where Seattle is headed. Seems to me with the way that the Rangers have just lost a couple in a row and the Houston's back in. I mean, Seattle still should be looking at this like a winnable division. Absolutely.
Right. You're 2 games out of the wild card, but it's not just the wild card. You're just about to still win the division. And now you're talking about the departure of talent from a team. I can understand the Luis Castillo one we just talked about. Like, I can say, okay, make that move, whatever. But thinking about trading Randy Arozarena and Kirby and or Emerson, like, what are we doing here? It's like you're going to be trading away multiple players, and Kirby could be a number 2 starter in the playoffs, depending on how the schedule. You would have Wu and Gilbert and Kirby. Like that's one of your top 3 stars in the playoffs. You're talking about removing him from the one. The offense has been terrible for Seattle for large parts. You're talking about removing Randy Arozarena. So something feels wrong about the Mariners. Like if they make one trade, I think there's going to be more coming, and it doesn't seem like it'd be the right decision to make, at least to me.
Well, let's see it play out. That's usually what I like to do in these situations. Yeah, a lot of rumors still yet, nothing really concrete. All right, Cleveland trades Bo Naylor to the Milwaukee Brewers. They just basically sent him to the minors, so this isn't a major trade here. Craig Yoho, Blake Perkins, this is a depth move. But I think I would summarize all of this weekend, Tom, with as follows. Cleveland's getting smacked down by the Diamondbacks right now. And they probably have more to worry about on the field than making trades at this point. And Cleveland, Tom, they're never going to get super aggressive at a trade deadline. It's just not going to happen with them. But what do you make of sort of where the Guardians are at here? We know where the Brewers are at. They're just making trades to fortify the back end of the roster, the 25th, the 26th man, and that's all.
Yeah, this move's more about the guards. It's a non-needle mover. What it really comes down to, Bo Naylor's not a good player. You want to get some depth pieces. I think that's fine. This really comes down to the Guardians because, as I said about the Guardians for a large portion of the season, you have a great pitching staff. And Gavin Williams has been awesome. Parker Messick has been an amazing breakout. Tanner Bybee is still super solid. Slate Ciccone is okay. You have great pitching. You have a great bullpen, but you just don't have enough offense. So maybe it's a move before another move. Maybe they're trying to set themselves up to acquire another player. They need one extra prospect, one extra this, just to be able to flip them and move. Something along those lines. But at face value, I have to wait to see what the other results are going to be come Monday night.
If there ever was a move to be made by the Atlanta Braves, it's this one, getting a guy who is going to mash lefties, do nothing else, come pinch hit off the bench. An absolutely perfect trade for the Braves to get Lane Thomas, who, Tom, does one thing and one thing very well. He hits lefties. That's where he's at in the stage of his career. I know that he was great with Washington, parlayed that into a couple of contracts, but boy, doesn't this feel exactly like what the Braves do every year? Just get a little bit player, and they'll get some more, by the way, Tom, before it's all over. Also, Bailey Falter goes to the Braves. I don't know if he factors in much, but definitely this is a Lane Thomas deal.
It is, a little bit of pitching depth with Falter just for the innings that, they're dealing with some injuries, and Ronaldo Lopez went on the IL this morning. But Lane Thomas, to your point, is they always seemingly pick up one hitter at the deadline who goes on some super hot streak in September or October. We saw it before with the Braves. They won a World Series. And again, they haven't been healthy for the majority of the season. So between Lane Thomas and Yastrzemski and their platooning, it looks like a great fit.
It does. It really very much like the Braves. Okay, some other deals happened too, some more minor league deals, some rumors as well. We'll try to get to it all when we continue next. Don't go away. All right, welcome back to Pro Baseball Today here on SportsGrid. Major League Baseball's trade deadline is Monday at 6 p.m. Eastern. Tom and I will break it all down for you. Kevin Walsh will join us later in the show to break down the Tariq Skubal trade to the Los Angeles Dodgers. And, certainly you can catch our show on demand. We've been talking about it throughout the show if you are just joining us. So, unfortunately, we moved to some teams that are a little bit perplexing. This is, honestly, the one at the deadline that I didn't see coming, and I still don't understand it. Tom, the Minnesota Twins, what is going on with the Twins here? I mean, I give them credit. First of all, I really do like Dean Kramer. I know he's had a bad year, and he had that optical issue the other day with Pete Alonso where he was pointing to his eyes and everyone saw it and thought maybe he was showing him up. I don't know if that's the case or not. But I do think Dean Kramer is good for your 5 innings, 3 earned runs, which is exactly what Minnesota seems to get from every single one of their starters. They gave back a prospect in Jomardo Reyes. But, the Twins, Tom, didn't have to make this trade, They didn't have to get Dean Kramer. They're choosing to get Dean Kramer. I mean, the only thing that I can think with this, after firing or letting go or parting ways with their president and then their assistant general manager, so this is Falvey and Thad Levine over the last couple of years, firing their manager, Rocco Baldelli. Byron Buxton is out. The only thing I can think of, I hate to say it here, is that the ownership must really want to go for it or something here, Tom, within reason. It's the only thing that I can come up with that they are asking their current front office to pivot, because on paper, Tom, I see a bad team. I mean, I'll give credit to Houston. I thought they were dead, but at least Houston has Yordan, at least they have Paredes and Pena. The Twins, it's a minor deal, and I don't want to make too much of it. And if they do nothing, I know they got Minter too, but if they do nothing between now and Monday, then I'll say, okay, like, that's fine. They just made some little tinkering moves. But Tom, are the Twins pushing the foot down too much here? I know Twins fans will be mad at me for this, but like, what are they doing?
They're pushing a foot down. Whether it's too much, I think is yet to be seen. But they're in a wild card spot right now. Right, as of Sunday morning, the 2nd, they're in a wild card spot right now. The AL wild card race is all over the place. Texas is dropping, Cleveland is dropping. You said they're going to beat around by the Diamondbacks, which they are. And when you're looking at a Twins roster that are bottom 5 in the league for most runs allowed, you need pitching help. And so the fact that they're doing this without Buxton, who you mentioned is out. Are they just saying hey, we can take some reasonable shots on some players? We're not giving up a whole lot. It's a prospect for an MLB pitcher. We're in the playoffs if the season ended today kind of conversation. So yeah, I think it's just that they're taking a reasonable swing at things just because why not? And to go into a wild card, and even if they lose that, they can build on that going into next year. I see this as very minor moves that if they don't make the postseason, I'm not going to be shocked. And if they do make the postseason, I think it's just because other teams around them are just so terrible.
Maybe so. Well said there. By the way, there was a report from The Athletic that the Astros had a deal to trade Brian Abreu, who in the past was a phenomenal setup guy for Josh Hader. This year, he hasn't had a great year. He seems to be getting better, though, Tom. So I found this interesting. And they were trying to get Trevor Larnach, and the report said, which really hurts the players, by the way. But again, this is sports, it's journalism. I've been involved in this for years, too. That Jim Crane, the Astros owner, said no to the deal. And then Larnach, I saw a report that he had to meet with the manager and kind of go over what his role was going to be moving forward. It really sucks. It is part of the game. I've tried to hold back on this stuff through the years and not report this stuff. I've tried. If I've had relationships with the players, usually I'll go to them after it's all said and done and say, hey, just so you know, this kind of happened before I would make it public because I know how bad it hurts. But my big takeaway from this, Tom, here's what it is. Of all the things that I think may happen in the next 24 hours, I would almost guarantee the Astros are going to get an outfielder of some kind, probably a left-handed outfielder, right? Like, that's the big signal to me, is that their outfield, Tom, is so bad. I don't even know how they got here, honestly. I guess they used to have Kyle Tucker and George Springer, But it's just so bad. They have to get an outfielder in the next 24 hours.
Yeah, the question is not whether or not this deal, could happen again, or Larnach will be traded to another team, which wouldn't make sense because if they're trying to acquire players, why would the Twins be getting rid of a quality player that brings offense? It's, the question is, what are the Astros now looking to do because this deal fell through? And it does suck for the players, and there's a ton of moving parts behind the scenes of whether or not a trade actually goes through and gets to the finish line. But the question is, who else will the Astros be pivoting to? Because Lane Thomas is now off the market. If Larnach doesn't get traded, who are they looking to move to, and what are they looking to give up? Because if another team's going to swoop in one of their competitors and take another outfielder that's available, that's going to negatively impact them, and they have to now overpay for that next player.
Yeah, and teams now, very well aware that Houston's in the market. They're back in first place. Crazy in the American League West. Thought they were completely dead. All right, we'll talk about some other players perhaps on the move. You're watching Pro Baseball Today. Don't go away.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
They come in a lot more better prepared to play than, say, we did, having to learn some of the things that we learned coming into the NFL that we weren't learning in college. A lot of these kids are getting quarterback coaches, as far back as junior high school and all the way through high school into college. So I think the position is a lot more stronger than it's ever been.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
Perhaps the teams that are the hottest will be making the biggest trades. As of right now, it is only the Los Angeles Dodgers that has seemingly jumped into the fray. They've made the biggest trade thus far of the trade deadline, acquiring Tariq Skubal very late Sunday morning, Saturday night, for prospects that go back to Detroit for the future. So very clearly at this point, if you're talking about a team pivoting for the postseason, look no further than the Detroit Tigers, officially the first team, I would say, before Monday that was unclear, waving the white flag. They can't pretend to still be in it, trading their best player. I personally don't think, but we'll see. One team that I would have said, Tom, that should have waved the white flag a month ago was the Houston Astros, an old team with no starting pitching and no outfield. Well, shame on me. I'm going to get this one wrong. Maybe I'll get my Cardinals right, but I think I'm going to get this one wrong. Man, the Astros swept the Marlins, then they swept the Angels, and now they're sweeping the Texas Rangers. Like, they are as hot as anybody. And what I look at here, Tom, and maybe this is something that we sort of forgot as time went on. Like the Padres, they get deep into these games. They got Morahone and they got Mason Miller. Boy, Josh Hader is still one of the best closers in baseball. And Josh Hader, every game he's come in, whether it was the Angels or the Rangers, he is saving games again. He is just like he was with Milwaukee. Their offense is great. They have the best hitter in baseball. Jeremy Pena is having a fantastic year. I guess Dana Brown and the GM and Jim Crane can look at the Astros again and say, hey, look, if we can win this division and get a 5-game series in our building with 3 home games, or a wild card series, by the way, with 3 home games, we owe it to the fans to try to be back at home to see if we can advance. I get it. For the wild card, I don't know. But they're right in the division hunt again, and I would be stunned if they didn't make a big deal heading into Monday.
The way I'm looking at this and a lot of teams in their situations is just simply saying, why not? And what if? What if we go on a run? What if we win 5 games? They're sweeping teams. They're beating Texas, which is their direct competition for the AL West. The other teams around them are struggling. Even if they fall out of that AL West spot, they're still going to be a good spot in the AL wild card because Cleveland's struggling. So, the White Sox are going to take the division. Therefore, the Astros could be into a wild card. So they're saying, what if? What if this happens? Why not us? And if they can make one extra move, to your point, which we just talked about, needing another outfielder, this would actually put them in a spot because Texas is good. And I think you and I would agree that we like them the best in that division and their most well-rounded team. But they're also not some amazing team that's some Goliath that another team needs to take down. And the Astros are maybe just 1 or 2 moves away from being just as good as them. Now, I think the Astros need significant frontline pitching help. I think their bullpen's great. They can score some runs. Jordan's going to win AL MVP. But outside of that, if Jordan has a tough series, if the bullpen's just a little bit shaky, where are you going to win series or win games? So that's the question I have. Can you make 1 or 2 moves leading into Monday night that will allow you to fortify some of those weaknesses?
Yeah, agreed. The other team that's been red hot, and this just doesn't stop. I mean, they won 2 out of 3 from the A's, and you thought the Red Sox would go to L.A., and hang in, not only hang in, but they're on the verge of sweeping the Dodgers. How about that? They win on Friday. They won last night. And, you would assume that, I got to tell you, the team that's had the most rumors surrounding them in the last 72 hours, Tom, it's Boston. And they haven't come up with anything yet, but I would assume that the Red Sox are going to be grabbing somebody here before the deadline, too. It's kind of annoying to me, honestly, Tom, with the amount of rumors they have going on. Feels like they have the biggest rumor. Am I wrong? It feels like they have the biggest rumor mill of anybody going right now.
Just rumor mill, but news in general for the Red Sox, not just the last 5 games, it's the last month or so for the Red Sox, which they've been super hot. We know that Curtis Mead has a fractured wrist. He's going to be out 6 to 8 weeks. They trade early to the Nats for Mead. First plate appearance against the Athletics, we got a fractured wrist. So to see them now want to make another move after they've continued to win does not surprise me. Going up against the Dodgers, taking 2 out of 3 against the Dodgers on the road is always an impressive thing. They obviously have the Sunday night game, which is to be determined at this point. But again, they're in the why not us category. They have made some good moves. The team isn't, I'm going to say, super fundamentally solid. They do have some flaws in them, but they are 1 or 2 moves away from being another serious contender in the AL, not in order to win the AL, but to make a deeper-ish run.
Yes, for sure. We got the Atlanta Braves making a deal for Lane Thomas. Unfortunately for our producer, Sam, I don't see the Undertaker popping out in the coffin for the Nationals. I think that's it. They lost 3 games in a row to Atlanta. Their Fangraphs odds for the Nationals now down under 10%. Braves are going to win this division, Tom. They are, to me, the second class of the National League. Like, I think they're right there with the Brewers. They are not as good as the Dodgers. The NL has the teams this year. They really do. Like, they have, I think, 3 of the 4 best teams at the worst. And they're just red hot right now, Atlanta. They just keep winning. It doesn't matter who they have. They're talking about maybe getting some of their pitchers back, too. You mentioned Lopez going on the injured list. I think Alex Anthopoulos is going to add more players, too, before Monday.
Yeah, the name that I've seen, come up for the Braves would be Casey Mize from the Detroit Tigers. Mize, we got to remember, was a former number 1 overall pick in 2018, if I remember correctly. And, that's the type of pitching help that they need. They got Smith-Shawver back last week. He made his first start of the season against the Mets. But, how long until he's fully stretched out? You just lose Lopez. We know that Strider's essentially done for the year. So they need a little bit more pitching. I think they remedied some nice things with that Lane Thomas deal. And again, as long as the lineup stays healthy and Acuna's back, I think the pitching would be the prominent thing that they should be looking to fix going into Monday night.
Sneaky team on the rise here in the National League West. Probably not going to win the division, so I'm not sure how aggressive they get, Tom. But it seems to me that the Diamondbacks are one of those teams every year that around the trade deadline, boom, they pull off some massive trade. So I'm going to look for them also to see what they end up doing here. And they took care of business against Pittsburgh. They've already won the series against Cleveland, and this is really without any good starting pitching going for Arizona right now. I'm not saying that Arizona's a World Series contender, Tom, but I've said this for a while. I really think that they have a great opportunity to capture one of those wild card spots.
I do too, and listen, if the Diamondbacks go on the road, and what would the wild card matchups be? I'm just looking this quickly off the top of my head, but if the Diamondbacks were to go on the road and do we take the Diamondbacks? Yeah, to face the Cubs. Do we like the Diamondbacks in that series? Now, granted, both teams are flawed.
Probably.
Right, both teams are flawed, but also Casey Mize could be a good fit for the Diamondbacks. They need that frontline pitching, which they don't have. And you said this recent series against the Guardians, they have not had quality pitching going in. Just not just big names. They're calling up younger players. They need innings out of them. Brandon Pfaadt's been injured, and he's been up and down. Ryan Nelson is finally back. He's been up and down. Zach Gallen hasn't been good. Merrill Kelly hasn't been amazing. Eduardo Rodriguez has been absolutely great for them this season, but they just need a little bit more, and they will be a team worth backing because as we talk about the Cubs, they are a complete roller coaster of a team, and the Diamondbacks as being underdogs at Wrigley Field in that series would be very interesting if we're projecting that far ahead.
Yeah, can you imagine if Corbin Burns comes back in September for them and then all of a sudden joins that rotation? All of a sudden, then maybe Gallen is healthy and better and Merrill Kelly. That's not a bad team at all. Kind of formidable. All right, so the White Sox kind of owe it to their fans. I understand why they are trying to go for it a little bit. And I'm not sure it's the right idea, but you know what? There's been so much discourse and bad vibes for the White Sox, Tom, that I feel like they got to try a little bit here. So they took care of the Yankees. That was impressive. Really big win for them Friday night against Tampa Bay, and then lost just 1-0 to the Rays. So they've played good baseball all season long, and I feel like that front office and that ownership are kind of like, you know what? We've had this opportunity before when we had Eloy Jimenez and Moncada and Robert. We really didn't go for it. We really didn't do enough. Maybe they're trying to correct that wrong.
Yeah, they've had a decent stretch, split the series versus the Yankees. They got to try and salvage a win against the Rays on Sunday, which will be huge for them. The thing that I would say for the White Sox is you can take swings, but have them be very cautious swings. You shouldn't be overreaching to get a big player based on where they are in their essentially team development cycle. Like they are on the front foot of starting their rise to compete. You don't want to jump ahead of that and jump a hurdle and say, okay, well, now we're going to bring in players and give up all these assets. Like, you should be taking very cautious approaches to the trade deadline, because ultimately, even if you swing and miss on one or two players, you still have a good foundation for the next set of years, and then you'll be in a good spot year in and year out.
It did take a big swing, adding $20 million to their payroll next season with Luis Castillo. So I don't know how much more they're going to do, but we will see. The White Sox certainly can go a little bit above where they are. All right, coming up next, we go from who's hot to who's not. A couple of teams, playoff odds cratering this week. We'll tell you who next. All right, welcome back to Pro Baseball Today here on SportsGrid as we wrap up this first hour of the show. Tom Vecchio along with Craig Mish. Let's go to some of the teams that are not hot. I saw one of them in person this week. Absolutely stunning series. I do want to throw some caveats out here. I do want to do that because my Marlins have just been so hot and cold and hot this season that, I mean, it's kind of hard for me to figure who they are right now. But I want to show you something here, Tom. And this is kind of funny, is that look at these three losses they lost to Miami. Now, Miami during their 12-game losing streak could have won several of those. Mm-hmm. But, Tom, the Phillies could have won all three of these games against Miami. They could have. I was there. I watched all three games. They had a lead Monday. They had bad luck Tuesday with Miami making great plays, and they were leading 6-0 on Wednesday and lost. Now, I didn't see the Brewers game. I'm sorry, the Baltimore game on Friday, and then they came back and they shut out Baltimore. There's a lot of panic in Philadelphia. I do think that they need to tinker a little bit with the roster. I still think, Tom, they're a really good team. I do. I think that what's lost is this is not the same Phillies roster of 4 years ago or 3 years ago with Rhys Hoskins and Nick Castellanos and some other players. That's gone. They don't have those guys anymore. So the back end of where they are, 6, 7, 8, 9, ain't great. Their pitching is great, Tom. A bullpen piece, a back-end piece for that lineup. I know that there's panic. You can't tell anything to those fans in Philadelphia. I think they're going to be in the postseason. Do I think they're going to win the division? Probably not. But Dave Dombrowski, this time of the year too, Tom, as good as it gets. So I am going to hold my full reservation on Philadelphia and the Harper comments and everything else until the end of the season.
Right. And I believe in that Friday game against the Orioles, they also had a 3 or 4-0 lead or 4-1 lead, whatever it was at a certain point. So, they could have had half those games. And then we'd be looking at them and saying, oh, they have 3 or 4 wins in their last 5. And then we wouldn't be in this spot for the Phillies. But to your point, I think they are in the market for an outfielder. And, looking at, you said to the back end, Stott, Rincones, Crawford, and Stubbs, not the best, 6, 7, 8, 9, especially with the 2 outfielders. I think between them and the Astros, they're going to be the ones bidding for an outfielder. Who can they get to add to that lineup? Because, losing Adolis Garcia is a big strikeout hitter, but he also has some power. And that really, I would say, insulates, Schwarber and Harper in the top of the lineup that much more. So between the Astros, the Phillies, and maybe one other team looking for a premium outfielder to get at the deadline, that's what they all need to be looking to do. And I would say that the pitching in the bullpen is what they also need to address, to your point. We know that Andrew Painter didn't work out in the starting rotation, but that really doesn't matter when you have Chris Sanchez and you have Zach Wheeler and you have Jesus Luzardo. That's a great 1, 2, 3. The bullpen would be the secondary thing after the lineup for me.
Yeah, bullpen had been good, but it's starting to fail a little bit, and that's been the issue with the Phillies through the years. So, and you made a great point with Adolis Garcia. I mean, they tried, it didn't work. They tried to get somebody. But it's just like Boston getting Meade. Sometimes you got to double down when you have an injury or you're not going to make it. So this is the perplexing one to me. This is the perplexing team to me. The Pittsburgh Pirates, with all of that hitting and all of that pitching, they lose 4 out of 5 games this week to Arizona and Cincinnati. And then they came back Saturday and they won. Skeens did not look good Friday night. Their playoff odds, Tom, this is the biggest drop of the week in terms of playoff odds, and the Nationals dropped too, but Pittsburgh dropped significantly this week to under 30%. I thought, Tom, they were in the best position to capture one of those final wild card spots, but if Skeens isn't Skeens, I don't even know if I feel the same way about the team. But and they lost Ryan O'Hearn, if I'm not mistaken, for 4 to 6 weeks. Are the Pirates going to try and make that up here? Because I got news for you, Tom. If they don't, this is going to be a massive organizational change in the offseason if they fall short of the playoffs.
It really has to be. And when you're looking at a team they are second in the league in terms of runs scored, second in the league in terms of runs scored, and say, okay, teams are there plenty. They have horrible pitching. The Pirates actually have a positive run differential, and they're not going to make the playoffs. That would be a huge problem. And I'm not saying that the Pirates were some lock to make the playoffs or the Pirates have been some super well-run organization in past years, but they need to remedy this. And they're obviously running out of time because of the deadline. If they make no moves, I think that's them folding. I don't think they can sustain what they've been doing thus far. They can't continue that for another 2 months, essentially, losing O'Hearn, Skeens not being at a top level. And not making moves, I think, is folding to the fan base. I think that's what it indicates. You're just not willing to take the shot this year and at least try and make the postseason for once.
I still do like Camilo Doval, so I do like that trade, and maybe in Pittsburgh he'll be better than he was in New York. But and by the way, I won't indict Pittsburgh if they win 83 games and don't make the playoffs. But if they finish under 500 or something like that would be a very disappointing season. All right, so the fun for the Washington Nationals, I think, officially comes to a close this week. They just got beat down by the Braves. Seemingly put everybody out of their misery, it seems like, every year. You think you're really good, and then you play the Braves, and they take care of you. Look, Washington was playing opportunistic baseball. Paul Taboni, the general manager, came out and said that they may extend Foster Griffin. Why did they do that? That's why, so they can trade him tomorrow and get more for him. That's the way that it works. He's going to be traded tomorrow. Some team is going to cash in, I think, big time on him. I got nothing bad to say about the Nationals. They were ahead of pace, but now I think anything that's not tied down for the future, they got to move, I think, tomorrow. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, great fun season for the Nationals. It's obviously not over. You go out and get a pitcher with early for Meade. I think that's fine. You say you want to extend Foster Griffin, which I saw the report earlier in the week. I was like, there's no way this is true. We're talking about a pitcher in Foster Griffin who has extremely limited MLB experience prior to this season. And he's been great this season. But he's also just not the type of player that you want to invest heavily in until he actually proves it for multiple seasons. So they should trade him, get some assets back. Again, I'm going to continue to say high-level pitching prospects, either starting pitching or relief pitching, which they desperately need bullpen help. and then you'll be in a good spot. Don't trade CJ Abrams, and you work towards next year. You remedy some of it in the offseason, and you go from there.
Yeah, it's a good team. It's like Paul Taboni calls me. He says, Craig Mish, hey, Foster Griffin, extension. Where do you think an extension? What do you think? Okay, fine, sounds good. But Foster Griffin, extension, no chance. And not that he doesn't deserve it, but it's just like, come on, like, let's get real. All right, Texas. Oh, man, Texas loses to Tampa Bay. They lose to Houston. Oh, no, Tom. The Rangers taking it. I mean, all they have to do is just like win 6 out of 7 and they'll win the division. Can they do it?
I would hope so. They were hot against the Mariners, and then they've kind of come crashing back down to earth. Losing against your direct competition in the Astros is a nightmare scenario.
Yeah, and the Battle of Texas, that's a hard one to lose. They always fight each other in that. All right, we'll have more to come on Pro Baseball Today next.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. We've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back. Kevin Walsh will join us in 30 minutes or so to break down the Tariq Skubal trade to the Los Angeles Dodgers. We've been discussing that extensively. And other than that, it's been a very quiet trade deadline, very similar to every other year. But, believe me, in the next 24 hours, it will pick up. It's just you cannot have expectations leading into Sunday. Generally a lot does not happen. So we did have a contract extension. I really do like this one for Baltimore. Yenier Cano. Remember, Tom, there was a time when it was the Cano Bautista show where that was the best 8th, 9th in all of baseball. Hasn't really worked out that way. Cano has been hurt and he's been working himself back. He signed a 2-year extension, 27, 28. And dare I say, Tom, I think there's a possibility they enter next season with Cano as their closer. I think there's a chance of that.
I think so too. I'm not going to say this extension kind of came out of left field, no pun intended, but it's a fine extension. I don't see it again as a huge needle mover. I think this is something that the Orioles, could have done in the offseason. If they want to get it done now, so be it. There have other players, they're involved in some trade rumors. But to me, the Orioles don't need to make big splashy moves. I think they need to make a few moves in the offseason, then they'll truly be in contention for a wild card. A bit more pitching and maybe just some injury luck, and I think they'd be in a good spot.
Carlos Correa says that maybe he will come back this season. I don't think he would have said this if Houston was falling out, but now they're coming back in. If I'm reading this correctly, there's a chance last week of the season or last 2 weeks of the season, Tom, he could come back and get himself ready for the playoffs. He certainly will help Houston, but I think Houston's probably looking at this like, hey, if we're going to be this hot without you, I'm sure they would love to have him back. I don't want to say that they wouldn't. but their offense is just rolling, Tom. Like, this is just, I mean, Isaac Paredes, look out. Altuve, look out. Jordan, look out. Pena. Like, I mean, I guess Correa could just be DH for them, and that would work. They have Christian Walker, too. I suppose if you get anything out of Correa, it's a bonus.
Yeah, I would say they need to be really cautious with this. You know, everyone likes to use the phrase in a lot of circumstances like, oh, this is addition by subtraction. But what if this is subtraction by addition? Like, what if you don't want to be forcing him into the lineup when things are going well? And how much time will it take him to get back up to speed at an MLB level? Like, if you just throw him in for 2 games at the end of the regular season, like, okay, he's in the lineup for the postseason, but all of a sudden he's just a dead spot in the lineup. It's like, now you have him on the roster. He's not going to hit. He's not hitting well. He's not going to play the field. You're taking now, what are you going to do with the rest of it? So I see this as a very, very tough decision for them to make, because he needs to be a competent hitter at the plate. Because if you're taking up a roster spot and or forcing him into the lineup, you're taking out a hitter who's been rolling for the last 2 months and doing his job. And now you're saying, oh, because of name brand and franchise history, we have to have him in the lineup. It could be a big mistake, and also could be a big benefit. But I see this as like a 70-30. Not having him in the lineup is the better decision.
Yeah, probably wait on Correa, let him do a minor league assignment, see how he looks, and then make a decision. Probably just as a hitter, I would guess. Will Smith, by the way, not coming back anytime soon. They set a timeline which they should be setting for all of their players at this point, whether it is Glasnow or Snell or anyone else. Just get back for the end of the season, get your couple weeks in, and play for us in the playoffs. So for now, Dalton Rushing is still behind the plate.
Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks brings us to September 1st, which is irrelevant, really. To your point, it's like, will he be ready to play on September 20th? Let's just pick a date. September 20th. Yep. Yeah, can he get a couple starts in behind the plate? Does he have the rhythm down? Can he throw out hitters? Can he do a minor league assignment? And then boom, September 25th he's played 5 games. He's good to go. You play him every other day with Rushing, and he's ready for October 1st. That's what matters. It doesn't matter that he's ready or not ready on August 5th.
I was with Joe Ranieri Friday night, and he asked me about this Harrison Bader situation, and I completely misfired, Tom. I thought that the Giants would not play around with Bader's money because they owed him money for next year. And for those who are unfamiliar, he was already hurt and then suffered a scooter accident, which is going to sideline him even longer. I mean, track record and history tells me, Tom, that you generally, when a guy has a long-term deal, you don't want to, get him upset or piss him off, especially considering it's such little money. It's not a lot of money. I was wrong, man. Buster Posey puts a statement out there saying they're going to withhold the rest of his salary for this season until he's able to rehab and get back on the field as he would have had he not had this injury. I'm surprised, Tom. I'm a little surprised with this one. I guess it's just making a statement. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised because it's Buster Posey, who was an all-time gamer. But generally you don't see this a lot, Tom. You don't see, just sending a message to a certain player. That's what they did here to Bader. I got to wonder what his spring training is going to look like next year. I got to be honest, in that clubhouse. I wouldn't want to be there.
And I'm just wondering if the Giants are just doing this, they just got to take a no-nonsense approach. No-nonsense approach. They have to say, we can't be putting ourselves behind the 8 ball when we're already behind the 8 ball against the Dodgers. Our team needs to operate professionally. It needs to be done, from the top to the bottom, all the prospects, all the players, everything needs to be done the right way in order for us just to have a chance, and we can't have shenanigans like this happening.
Well, hopefully for their sake, there is shenanigans because they got to investigate this to figure it out, and I wonder if Bader will say anything regarding the matter. We'll have hour 2 next. Welcome back to Pro Baseball Today, top of the hour. If you're just joining us, the mega trade has happened in Major League Baseball overnight. Tariq Skubal has been traded from the Detroit Tigers to the Los Angeles Dodgers. They got some prospects back in return, including one of the top outfield prospects. River Ryan was one of those, 28-year-old pitcher who looked really good for LA when he did pitch, but he's sort of been hurt. 3 different players going back in return. Tom, you and I have discussed this sort of extensively. There's a lot of panic going on. There's a lot of people who have never watched baseball in their lives now weighing in on this topic, which is kind of funny. There's some people who probably don't even has never watched Skubal even pitched in a game, I'm going to guess, weighing in on this. But it just exacerbates the point and drives it home that the Dodgers are doing a great job operating within the rules and doing things that teams can do in a way, but also doing some things that they can't do in terms of, having a payroll in the $300 to $400 million range. It's not something that at least a dozen teams, I would guess, can do in Major League Baseball. The Dodgers, their financials are just way better. Their TV contracts are way better. And correlating the lockout to this, or a potential lockout to this, I don't think it's relevant. But naturally, when the rich get richer, these are the kind of conversations that we have.
Yeah, this would say, ultimately, this is not the first domino to fall, right? This is, I would say, the last domino, just because things have preceded this that led the Dodgers to making this type of move, right? We've seen this before. So, whatever side of the fence you want to be on for this argument, you're going to take it and say, the Dodgers are abusing the system, and this is why we need this, that, the other thing. And other people say, the Dodgers are operating within the system, and they're just making trades. They've made an offer for, X player, and other teams did not meet that offer. Therefore, the Tigers took the best offer that they had. So it's not the Dodgers' fault that they offered 3 players and got it back. Another team could have offered 4 and offered that much better of a prospect, offered 3 prospects in the top 25 in order to get Skubal. So, whatever argument you want to make, you're going to make it when it comes to this.
Yeah, sure. I understand it, and we'll talk to Kevin Walsh about it coming up in less than 30 minutes. We continue our previews of the week ahead. What will the Phillies look like? Or even the Nationals? I'm not really sure. In fact, one of their pitchers for Washington is slated to start Wednesday. That is Foster Griffin, but I'm going to guess that's not going to happen because Foster Griffin is an impending free agent, and the Nationals only have him signed to this season. They play the Phillies this week. Littell, Nola, Irvin, Luzardo, Griffin Painter, and Michaelis Sanchez. Those are the matchups.
Yeah, I'm looking at this as a spot for the Phillies to kind of get back on track, right? A couple of rough games against your Marlins, a tougher series versus the Orioles. Sunday's results, to be determined. But, given the way that the Nationals have been struggling and given the fact that they could be departing with talent, some of these matchups may change as we go throughout the week. But there's also a chance for the Phillies just to right the ship and kind of quiet things down compared to where they were last week. So they take 3 out of 4 for the Nationals. They put up some runs, which is what they should be doing, especially at home, especially against that Nationals pitching staff. I think things will be back on track, and I think the fan base will be at least somewhat happy for the time being.
Yeah, and if Griffin doesn't go for Washington, man, it gives Philadelphia a big advantage this week. And so, we'll see what happens. And I guess by Monday, we'll have a much clearer picture. These 2 teams, too, could get active. It's the Pirates and the Brewers. Boy, it's important, I think, for Pittsburgh not to get blown out in Milwaukee this week. Chandler, Jones, Skeens, Ashcraft on paper, that's good. But the Brewers are the best team in baseball at home, Tom. I'm a little worried that the Pirates season comes to a close this week.
Yeah, this is a spot where, listen, if you can't get 2 out of 4 against the Brewers, and that's a tall task. The Brewers are awesome at home, on the road, in close games. They have a great back end of the bullpen. Their offense is kind of scrappy when it's all said and done, but they need to split this series, the Pirates do. But this also needs to be preceded by them making moves at the deadline. If they don't make moves and don't remedy some of the issues that they have, and then they go and win this series, it's we should have done a little bit more. So I see this as a second step after them needing to needing to make moves and then win games.
The Padres play the Diamondbacks this week. Both teams right now are sitting either in the wild card spot or on the verge of the wild card spot in the National League. And the funny thing is, looking at these pitching matchups, Tom, is I have a feeling a lot is going to change before we see this series play out next week. I mean, San Diego basically is going with openers and bulk guys almost every day. I don't know how the Padres got to this point, but that's what they're doing. So one of these 4 games here, you're going to see Sears pitch. That's what they do. He pitches bulk. Could be in the back of Marquez or Vasquez. Buehler's not even that great anymore. So Padres have to figure out how they're going to even get through the season, let alone the postseason. And for Arizona, look what they're doing. They're starting Brad and Drake. I mean, you would think that will change for Arizona as well with some of the injuries that they have had. But look, this could be a series where one team takes the clear advantage in the wild card standings after the other, but most likely what happens, a split, or one team wins 3 out of 4 as they sort of battle it out this week.
Yeah, really, really interesting spot for the Diamondbacks because they have the series versus the Padres. They also have a series versus the Dodgers after that. So they need some help. We talked about, the Diamondbacks kind of beating down the Guardians over the weekend. Brad and Drake started some of those games, and these are pitchers that do not have a whole lot of MLB experience. And, again, there are reports out there that Diamondbacks are looking for another starting pitching. So some of these could change, depending on if the trade happens, when that player actually gets there and is available. But I see the Diamondbacks as having the advantage in this series, and I would be looking at some lower scoring games. I think hopefully this plays out as a postseason type series. That's what I want to see just because of the intensity of what the teams need, but it's going to be a fun one.
The Cardinals signed Dustin May in the offseason. They certainly got a lot out of him. I cannot imagine that he makes this start Monday against the New York Yankees. I would imagine that he is dealt because he's on a 1-year deal too. It doesn't make any sense for the Cardinals to keep him. And the Cardinals talk about cratering their playoff odds. They have fallen less than 5%. On Fangraphs right now. So they appear on the outside looking in, but great, 3/4 of a season for them. I can't blame them at all for their year. McGreevy, Palante, I would think both of these guys could be on the move too. Chaim Bloom, I think, is going to take a look at this and try and dismantle as much as he can heading into next year. And for the Yankees, there's going to be no advantages here to betting these games. I mean, they're going to be minus 160, minus 170, maybe even minus 200 by the time Monday comes if the Cardinals end up trading May. But he would be one of those pitchers, right, Tom, to get moved? No reason to hang on to him.
No, I would say that that's a great option for a team maybe like the Diamondbacks or the Padres. They need pitching help. Someone just to give you a third starter in a rotation. But this series looks like it's going to be just Yankees top to bottom, especially if the Cardinals do make moves. And to your point, it really has been a good season for the Cardinals. They've exceeded our expectations. I know that. And, getting Weatherholtz up and then getting him extended is great to see. Seeing Jordan Walker finally find his footing in the MLB is good. I think Alec Burleson is solid. Like, they have some pieces that they want to build around and can build around, but it really just comes down to that starting pitching staff because I do not think it's good. You do not think it's good. They have pitchers that are vastly overperforming. So getting pitching prospects back and then fixing that going into next season, I think would put them truly in contention for the NL wildcard next year.
Rays haven't been nearly as good on the road as they are at home. They're going to take on the Rockies this week. Rockies have actually played okay at home. It's the road that's been dreadful for them. And certainly the Rays this week, without Shane McClanahan, who was placed on the injured list, they'll start Schultens on Tuesday. The Rockies, of course, their pitching is just awful. Lorenzen, Hughes, and Sugano. And look, the reality is, Tom, the Rays are going to be big favorites in these games, but they're probably not going to win all 3 games this week because Colorado, regardless of how bad they are, they seem to sort of scratch out wins at home.
Scratch out wins, and it's just going to be a higher scoring series. And, a Rays team total looking towards that on a night-by-night basis, I think is a pretty easy answer for this one.
Blue Jays, this will be a hug watch, I assume, for a lot of Blue Jays in the next 24 hours. Detroit sent their signal that they're going to play for the future. I would assume the Blue Jays will, but they haven't yet. I'd also be surprised, Tom, if Shane Bieber starts Monday against Tatsuya Imai. Bieber is a impending free agent. I would assume some team will try and piece him into a rotation. Trey Savage Tuesday, Dylan Cease and Brown on Wednesday. Wow, that's a great matchup. But boy, Houston's catching Toronto at the right time, aren't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, talent departing Toronto would be, the thing that the Astros really need to jump on. And I really don't think Bieber is going to be making that start on Monday. Listen, if he starts there and they just couldn't find a suitor, so be it. But trading him, I think, is the right answer for the Blue Jays.
It is. All right, we'll break. We'll come back and preview the Giants and Rangers next. You're watching Pro Baseball Today.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
You know, the dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, you know, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Just can't win the big game. He can't get us in the big game. Well, we got to let him go now because we're tired. We'll keep the quarterback. So, you know what I've been saying? Okay, you kept the quarterback. Guess what? Mr. Lamar Jackson, it's on you now.
Hey,
It's on you.
Absolutely.
Right? It's on Lamar.
It is. It is totally on him now and the new coaching staff there.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. You know, we've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back to Pro Baseball Today here on SportsGrid. Craig Mish along with Tom Vecchio as we continue previewing the week ahead, which could look a lot different come Monday. A lot of teams off on Monday, too, by the way. But let's take a look at the Giants and Rangers. Certainly the Giants have been in the rumors for trades. Luis Arias, Robbie Ray. Ray is slated, Tom, to start Tuesday against Mackenzie Gore. Rangers probably will try to upgrade their pitching a little bit. If they don't, then Cal Quantrill will start Monday. I expect Logan Webb to stay in San Francisco. Simply put, Tom, this is a series the Rangers should win 2 out of 3. I mean, we're at that point in the season now. They're a good team. The Giants are a bad team. You would expect that, but it is baseball after all.
Yeah, not just that they should, they need to be winning 2 out of 3, especially with this little recent downturn that they've been on with the Astros beating them in those specific games that the Rangers have been losing. So they need to start picking up wins, and whether it's going to be for them pushing back towards the AL West title or simply just solidifying their spot in the AL wildcard, this is a must 2 out of 3 by the Rangers. There's no other way to put it.
Dodgers will take on the Cubs, and right now, you know, so much in flux, I think, for both teams. The Cubs certainly looking to make moves. The Dodgers probably not done. Monday, Robleski will start against Matthew Boyd, and then things get interesting because I wonder if Skubal will start this Tuesday game against Assad instead of Lauer, but we'll see. As of right now, it looks like Wednesday will be the Skubal debut in Chicago. And so Sasaki would get moved back a day against Imanaga. So, wow, what a debut that would be. Wednesday night, Tom. That'll be must-watch television.
Yeah, Skubal's first start with the Dodgers. Certainly going to be interesting, but this is just an important series for the Cubs. That's how I really look at this. No matter how good Skubal has been, he's been unbelievable. Coming back from the elbow surgery, he barely missed any time for that. He looks like his old self. He looks like he never had any issues. But this is a series more about the Cubs, and I think this is a good, measuring stick and a good litmus test for the Cubs. Is can they really go toe to toe with the Dodgers? Now, if they lose 2 out of 3 in this series, I'm going to say, do they lose these games? Are they losing them 10-2? Or are they losing them 5-4? Is it 3-2? Because putting up good performances, I think, is at least a good indication of where they're in. Because, again, this is a roller coaster of a team. If they take 2 out of 3, the Cubs do, great. They'll be in a good spot. I think they'll instill a lot of confidence. And when that's a Cubs backer out there for any type of ticket you have. But if they're getting blown out in this series, we're going to be looking at them as a third-class team behind the Dodgers, the Brewers, the Braves, the Phillies. They'd be a full 2 steps behind.
The Angels, very similar to the Mets, scratched one of their pitchers from their start this weekend. Jose Soriano did not start. As of right now, they haven't announced anything for Tuesday with Reed Detmers, but he could be certainly on the move. He'll face off with Cade Povich. This is a series that the Orioles are in a good position to take, Tom. And if they do, and just kind of to set the tone here for some of these pitchers that get scratched, just from my experience doing this in the past, what this usually means, not every time, but it usually means when a team scratches a pitcher, they have set a floor for what they would accept in a trade. So I would assume the Mets have what they want for Peralta, and the Angels have what they want for Soriano. And now what they'll do is try and see if they can extract a little bit more or work out a final deal with a team, because you wouldn't do that unless you knew you had some sort of trade in hand. But it doesn't pay them to do it right now. They can wait, try to get another team involved in it. But that is sort of the thinking. So I would imagine Soriano is on the move before next week.
Yeah, Soriano and or Reed Detmers, both could be moved. And again, it's just rational way teams operate is very simple. Again, the Orioles, for as bad as or mediocre as they've been, they're 1.5 games out of a wild card spot right now. They're playing the Angels. 2 out of 3 games is a big spot. So 2 out of 3 for them. You know, the Twins are ahead of them in the wild card. We certainly don't think, despite the moves the Twins are making, we don't think the Twins are actually good enough. But chasing down the Guardians, who are in a bit of a free fall right now, they're 2-8 over their last 10. This is a spot for the Orioles to win 2 out of 3 or sweep the series and vault themselves back into the wild card spot, which is not something that we would have said 2 or 3 or 4 weeks ago.
Yeah, definitely not, but here they are. White Sox and Red Sox, both teams charging toward the postseason. White Sox getting Luis Castillo. Maybe Castillo ends up pitching one of these games this week, but as of right now, it's Martin, Burke, and Fetty. Those are the 3 starters scheduled. And the Red Sox have Cy Young candidate Sonny Gray, Ranger Suarez. Red Sox are going to be pretty big favorites, Tom, I would imagine, in 2 of these 3 games.
And it's really going to be another spot for a team with a good litmus test. You know, the White Sox struggled against the Rays, and they're going to try and salvage the series on Sunday. They have to go on the road against one of the hottest teams in baseball, or the hottest team in baseball. And you got to say, okay, are the White Sox for real? Can they go on the road? Can they get 2 out of 3 in this series? And again, the Red Sox are coming off of a long-ish West Coast road trip, 4 against the Athletics, 3 against the Dodgers. So they're going to be coming off that high of winning those 2 series, especially against the Dodgers, and then go into home, maybe fall a little flat. This would be the chance for the White Sox to jump on them. I still see the Red Sox as by far the better team, even though they may not be fully the better team on paper. I think the Red Sox will be heavy favorites, as you mentioned, in all games.
Guardians will be favored against the Mets, except for Thursday. Man, McClain is pitching great for the Mets. But outside of McClain, Tom, the Mets are horrendous. And, you know, they basically have, I mean, they haven't quite dismantled the team, but they've traded away Minter and they put Perez on the injured list. Like their bullpen, their back end. I mean, if Weaver sticks around, I guess maybe they could win some games with Devin Williams, but the Mets are just awful. Polanco can't hit. Cleveland should win this series, Tom. I mean, even with this, look, the starting pitching isn't great, of course, and they don't have Gavin Williams in this series, but I'm really down on watching the Mets recently again. I mean, as you should be. I mean, outside of Lindor, who really scares you in this lineup?
No one. To your point, Gavin Williams is going on Sunday for the Guardians. They need to get a win against the Diamondbacks to do something to salvage that series. But the phrase I use in a lot of different sports is the same thing I'll use now for the Guardians. If not now, when? If you can't beat the Mets now, what team are you going to beat? Because you're struggling right now. You're falling behind the White Sox. The Twins are chasing you down. If you can't beat the Mets, who are you going to beat?
Yeah, there's no question the Mets right now are in such bad shape. And, the big surprise, I think, from a negative perspective in baseball this season, finishing looks like on pace for almost 90 losses on the year. All right, we'll take a quick break here on Pro Baseball Today. When we come back next, we'll take a look at some of the other series in baseball and discuss the Tariq Skubal trade some more with Kevin Walsh, who will join us here on the show. Skubal, now a member of the Los Angeles Dodgers after the deal made early Sunday morning, late Saturday night. In case you missed it, that's right, Skubal joining that Dodgers rotation. We'll have a whole lot more coming up next here on this Sunday edition of Pro Baseball Today, so stay with us. We'll be right back. All right, let's take a look at the upcoming series in baseball this week. A few more here before we close the book on that. We'll get to Kevin Walsh coming up. Twins and Royals. It wasn't supposed to be scintillating. It probably still is not scintillating, but the Twins are pretending like they have a shot in this thing, so let's give them the credit. Tom, they will start new pitcher Dean Kramer on Wednesday against Michael Wacha if he is not dealt. Bailey Ober against Noah Cameron. Cameron pitched great, by the way, last time out. And then Ryan pitches against his old buddy, Randy Dobnak, who used to pitch for the Twins. I saw a stat the other day that the Kansas City Royals, if you want to summarize their season a little bit, Tom, they have the highest bullpen ERA in the ninth inning for any team in the history of Major League Baseball. That's how bad their ninth inning has been this season. So at least they know what they have to correct next year, Tom, but for this year, it's too late.
Yeah, a little back-end bullpen help and a little bit of injury luck would be great for the Royals. But, we've talked about the Twins. We talked about them making moves, other players in the trade rumor mill for the Twins. This is a good series. If they're serious about pushing towards the postseason and they want to make one more move, you can make the move on Monday or, whenever it is leading up to the deadline, and then go into the start of the series, the start of the next series, and take 2 out of 3 versus a clearly weaker opponent, even though we don't think too highly of the Twins, and put yourself to make the postseason. Now, obviously, there's still a lot of baseball to be played, but picking up easy wins is the goal at this point.
The A's take on the Reds. Boy, the A's, talk about bad. They've been the worst team in baseball for about a month here, Tom. It's been absolutely brutal. Giving up home runs like crazy, unfortunately for them. Let's talk about their starting pitching, which has been an unmitigated disaster. Ginn, Lopez, and Jeffrey Springs. If he's still there by next week, the Reds will have Singer, Lauder, and then Hunter Green. I can't believe Hunter Green's name is coming up in talks. That's very strange to me. But I guess the Reds are probably looking toward next year, too. I have no reason to believe that the A's won't be the worst team in baseball the rest of the season, Tom. I don't know what has happened with their pitching, but it's not just happening at home. It's happening on the road, too. We saw that they fired their pitching coach a couple of weeks ago. That has not helped the situation here. Unfortunately, and, I like Mark Kotsay, my buddy, a lot, but I don't know. I kind of feel like this collapse for the A's is going to cost some people their jobs. And I know it's not Kotsay's fault. To me, I still love the guy, played for the Marlins, and one of my favorite guys. But I have a feeling the A's are going to look at this, Tom, and say, how did we go from May being in first or being a game out to having the worst record in Major League Baseball? It can't be a good thing.
Yeah, the issues that the A's have are, I don't want to say systemic, but it's not just a course of one or two people making decisions. It's not just one pitching coach doing that. It's largely the ballpark factor, which is so bad for pitchers out there in Sacramento, that they're going to be up against it every year until they move to Vegas, and they're still going to be up against it there with their own issues. But this is a series that the Reds should be taking. Seeing Hunter Green's named involved in trade talks is absolutely crazy. He is a borderline Cy Young candidate, in my opinion. You just extended Chase Burns. You have a great 1-2 punch if you keep those two players around. And I know Hunter Green dealt with all the injuries, but if he goes into next year healthy, how do you not look at that saying, we have Hunter Green and we have Chase Burns who were in the postseason 2 years ago? You would be in a good spot. Like, we just need to make a few more moves, shore up the bullpen, shore up the pitching, because they have the offense, they have the lineup. But man, the Reds should not be looking to depart with players.
Yeah, I thought the Reds would be better than what they are. And by the way, Rhett Lauder, who pitched so great in April, just completely fell apart. But you could see him taking another step next year, too. Strange team, Cincinnati, for me. All right, so Marlins and Braves. Marlins lost 12 games in a row, and then again, they get super red hot. It's been one of the strangest years for me watching the Marlins ever, just seeing all the sweeps. They were involved in 7 straight sweeps. Imagine that. They either swept or got swept 7 straight times for over a month. That never happened in the history of baseball, too. So after they get done with the Mets this weekend, this will be a big test for them because they got to play the Braves, and generally they have not fared well. And they'll be a huge underdog, of course, on Tuesday with Chris Sale on the mound. But I don't know. Call me crazy. I think Marlins can win Wednesday and Thursday in these games after Tuesday is done. They're playing good baseball. I'm not sure if they do anything, Tom, between now and Monday. I kind of feel like Marlins feel like they're in it, but are also being a little bit realistic, knowing their odds are about 20% to make the playoffs. So not really a time to add, not really a time to subtract. It's kind of like, these are the guys that got us here. Let's see if they can take us to the playoffs.
Yeah, stand pat is what I've been saying about the Marlins for a little bit, and I would say as the series goes on, that's where the Marlins will have a better chance. I also think as the series goes on, that's where we'll see more and more runs being scored. I don't think we're going to see a super high scoring game on that first one with Snell going, but a few more runs as the series goes on, and I don't see either team making big acquisitions. Maybe the Braves get some back end pitching help or one other depth starter, but probably not much more after that.
I would assume Lane Thomas will be in a Braves uniform come Monday after he travels to Atlanta on Sunday. All right, we'll take a quick break here on Pro Baseball Today. We'll talk some prediction markets next.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live only on SportsGrid.
They come in a lot more better prepared to play than say we did, having to learn some of the things that we learned coming into the NFL that we weren't learning in college. A lot of these kids are getting quarterback coaches, as far back as junior high school and all the way through high school into college. So I think the position is a lot more stronger than it's ever been.
Outspoken with Dan Cilio, only on SportsGrid.
And welcome back to Pro Baseball Today here on SportsGrid as the Major League Baseball trade deadline is coming fast and furious, about 24 hours away. We've had the big deal that everyone was waiting for, so we'll get into that and a whole lot more as Kevin Walsh joins us. Craig, Tom, and Kevin here for the next 10 minutes talking some baseball. And Kevin, thanks for coming on the show and spending some time with us here this Sunday. So, I think that it was pretty much expected, which is kind of rare when you have a sort of trade of this magnitude with a player that is going to be headed west, and Tariq Skubal, who now gives the Dodgers an even better chance to win the World Series maybe than they had 24 hours ago. There's a lot of, very angry people, it seems, out there. I'm not sure why anybody is surprised after hearing so much buildup to this, but needless to say, it definitely gives LA another weapon, and certainly at this point, there's a reason why they're the prohibitive favorites to win the World Series.
Yeah, I think the anger, though, Craig, is this trade seems like it hardly has anything to do with baseball. Kind of across the board. I don't want to step on toes. So if at any point I'm wrong, I won't be embarrassed. You tell me. But I don't remember a lockout feeling this much a foregone conclusion. To the point where I'm starting to think half of the reason this deal went down. There's a lot of people like, how could the rest of baseball let it happen? You can't convince me that half of baseball isn't happy this happened. Most teams don't think they can win the World Series. A chunk of teams seemingly are accepting, you can say not of a lockout of changes, but everyone seems to believe the lockout's the only way to get there. So that, this isn't exciting. Honestly, aside from Dodger fans who are convincing themselves that they've always wanted to be the Joker, that they've always, we're villains. It's not that fun, but sure, good for you. Like, this isn't exciting. This isn't cool. This didn't break the internet. It's a lot of, okay. It's part of the reason the deal got done, I think, almost at, nearly midnight. It's like, all right, yep, he's a Dodger. I mean, I don't know if you guys disagree. I'm not saying we can't talk World Series odds and if they'll three-peat, but this deal to me has to do with, hey, enjoy, if you're a Twins fan, this little run might be a while before you watch Joe Ryan throw again.
Yeah, I see this as a bit of a boring trade, which, alluded to before. And, to your point, I think a lot of the league is they don't care that this happened, because sometimes you need to tip the scale so far over in order for changes to be made. And ultimately, I also find this, you say, an unexciting trade, because I want to see another team put the pieces together in order to beat the Dodgers. And now the Dodgers are just that much further ahead. So looking at the NL, is there any future market that you could possibly look to back another team? Because we're getting to the point in the season, which I've talked to you about before. I like backing the Dodgers in a capacity, which would be Dodgers to beat the Brewers, Dodgers to beat the Braves. Is there any NL future that piques your interest at this point?
I'm curious at what point we'll just see to win the NL yes-no markets, because the Dodgers have flipped to that minus price. So this is the baseball piece of it. I don't think the Dodgers did the deal in order to go ha-ha to everybody. I think Dave Roberts might say that at some point. I'm sure he will. But the Dodgers might actually need a real deal arm. Blake Snell's always injured. Oh, he's coming back. Great. That doesn't mean he's going to be healthy. Tyler Glasnow's even more injured than that. And Shohei Ohtani is not a real pitcher. I mean, we just do this now. This is now an every other year thing with Ohtani on the Dodgers, where we have this conversation of he doesn't need to pitch to be as valuable to you as he can be, but it's what he wants, so they let him do it. But there's this world where the Dodgers, in acquiring Skubal, have prevented themselves from going, do we need to start Eric Lauer in game 4? That's why that was the other piece of, kind of to your point, Craig, of this being a fait accompli, is there's a real argument the Dodgers needed Tariq Skubal as much as the next team.
Yeah, look, there's a lot of layers with it. The first thing that I would add to this that no one seems to be talking about is there's a strong possibility that the Dodgers are far from done at this trade deadline. They could certainly add a lot more players by the time Monday comes, and that would just get everybody more upset. So, I think that it's more to do, Kevin, with some of the other clubs that are in a really difficult position given their nature and where they are in the standings. And, Milwaukee and Tampa Bay, do they have better prospects potentially that they could have given up? Yes, but they're all looking at the same sort of thing, which is two things. Number one, it's very clear that anybody can beat the Dodgers. I mean, the Blue Jays just almost did that last year with the Blue Jays payroll and the Blue Jays players. They were this close to winning the World Series. So let's not make it a foregone conclusion that the Dodgers are going to win the World Series. But when the odds are just so stacked against you, whether they're betting odds or just being realistic amongst it, is it realistic to think that you can be better on paper with guys that you would give up for the future, that because of the disparity in revenue from the Dodgers to everybody else, Tampa Bay and Milwaukee really can't afford to give up better players than the Los Angeles Dodgers did, where the Dodgers just don't care and it doesn't matter under this current system. So, look, you guys know me by now. I'm very pragmatic about all this stuff. I generally don't get too upset, and I'm not. I mean, I've said it a million times before. It's what the sport needs. It needs a cap. It needs a floor to even the playing field. The revenue for the Dodgers and the teams at the bottom, there's a huge disparity. It's not close. The TV revenue is out of control, what the Dodgers make versus everybody else. It's not close. The Dodgers have a payroll that I believe is like $300 million more than Milwaukee and $350 more than Tampa Bay. So, Kevin, to me, that's part of the story. I don't think that's why the deal happened here, and I don't think there's any salaciousness to it. It's just the reality of where we are. The Dodgers are taking one last stab at it. I think they know what is coming. I think everybody knows what is coming. And if you can take one last ride and give this a shot before you may have to, in a couple of years, dismantle some of the payroll to make it work for a cap, why not do it? So I understand why the Dodgers are doing it.
Yeah, again, I'm not saying they did. I'm just saying, baseball is clearly the most important sport in your life, Craig, and you just very straight-faced went, yeah, we have a whole lockout coming. That's where we're at with this.
Yeah, but it was before that. It was before this.
I know it was.
And it was before Kyle Tucker and all that.
But that's what I'm saying. It's not.
Well, we don't have to, Kevin. Kevin, we don't have to have a lockout. The players could just be reasonable for the first. Listen, I've been a player's guy for 50 years, but this is the first time the players honestly got to look in the mirror and say, hey, it's time. It's time to change it.
Haven't even figured out if they agree across the board yet?
They agree across the board.
Do they?
Yes.
Okay. I mean,
28 out of 30, 27 out of 30,
not across
26
the board, right? Though,
at the end
of the day, these things are used.
It's close enough.
I mean,
it's 2/3.
Right, but usually it does. Usually it's 100%, and then they just go head to head with the players.
All you need is 2/3. All you need is 2/3 to make it go past on the owners, amongst the owners. You don't need more than that.
Whether we ban the tush push or not, it's changing the foundation of the sport. So usually you want to be a little bit more than 2/3. You want everybody to be on the same page.
Yeah, it's as close. I mean, my belief is it's as close to 30 as you're going to get. It's 27, 26. That's Kevin. I understand your point. It's irrelevant in the conversation. They all want to move forward in this. There's a couple of teams that don't. The Dodgers. I think Mark Walter came out and said that he's for it and he's on board and he's one of the people that's going out and spending this. I just look. I think the low lying. Look, you're not taking the low lying fruit today, but what I'm seeing on social media and I'm seeing everybody else is taking the low-lying fruit. Some people are actually saying that the reason, can you believe this? That the reason why the Dodgers got Skubal is because now they can extend him and you wanted to play there. There's zero chance of that happening. How does anybody not understand he's a Scott Boras client? So this is where the non-education for baseball fans truly comes out, I think, in moments like this. But Kevin, thank you so much for coming on the show. Really appreciate it. And we'll check in with you later. All right, coming up next, prediction market time. Don't go away. right, let's check in on some of the predictive markets on what you could potentially get involved in from an investment point of view and see if you end up winning or losing. Naturally, prediction markets have been a hot topic again this week, Tom. It seems like the state of New York wants to try and get these out. And by the way, if they do, that could change the landscape completely of prediction markets moving forward. But for now, they keep rolling here. And Shohei Ohtani, his number has dropped down from the MVP over on Kalshi. It was close to about 85% at one point. He's down to under 70% now, Tom. He's 63%. Pete Crow Armstrong is 36%. You know what I think, Tom, about this is that I don't think Ohtani is a good investment one way or the other because I do think he's going to win. But I do think if PCA keeps it up, he may be able to get some more money, a little more bang on your buck. I think this could rise a little bit for him. I don't think he's going to win, by the way. I think Ohtani's going to win. But the less Ohtani pitches, or if he doesn't pitch at all, there could be some narrative to change. But by the way, for me, Ohtani is the MVP, even if he pitches 15 games a year and that's it. The guy's the best hitter in baseball, or one of them, and pitches, even if it's 15 games a year and he's great, sign me up. I think he still wins, but I think I like the other investments there.
Yeah, I would say we're in total agreement on this. Ohtani's going to win the award, but that doesn't mean that A, he's a good investment at this point, and B, another player isn't a good investment. Again, we're not looking for PCA to win the award, but with Ohtani dealing with the bicep issue, the knee issue, to see him pitch maybe one more time to close out the season, or no more times, shouldn't shock anyone, but he could still win the award. To see PCA and his number rise, and you can make money off of that, that's, I think, a very rational way.
The Nationally Rookie of the Year, I think, is still a little bit in flux. I think that there could be some potential investment to be made on the back end of this, too. I do think 1-2 ends up like they are here or close with J.J. Weatherholt and Sal Stewart. But I look, Tom, and I wonder to myself if this kid Valdez on Pittsburgh continues to hit like he is without O'Hearn there, and Pittsburgh was to vault a little bit, would he start to get a lot more attention? Also, Joe Mack on Miami, their record with him is much better than it was without him, too. I think there may be some back-end investment here to win, but you look at Weatherholt's numbers over the course of the season, Tom, they're simply, and Sal Stewart, they're going to be better than probably all those other guys. But Valdez is a name to keep an eye on. Look, I didn't know a ton about him going into the year, but here's what I know. O'Hearn is out. Valdez is going to take his spot in the lineup. And if this guy ends up hitting 25 home runs, look out. I mean, maybe his numbers are similar to the others. I don't see it. I think this is unsustainable what he's doing, but just wanted to mention it.
Right. I'm a Sal Stewart believer. And, I talked to you at the beginning of the year. I'm not sure if you remember, but I specifically said that Sal Stewart has a legitimate chance to win NL Rookie of the Year, and I'm holding to it. We have a player that is tied and or leading, depending on what day of the week it is, the entire MLB in RBIs. Not just NL rookies, not just NL. He's leading the major leagues in RBIs. Now, he fell one behind C.J. Abrams, who took the lead last night. But we have a player that leads the league in RBIs. Some of his strikeout numbers aren't great. Weatherholt's WAR is higher. There's a lot of other factors. But if there's one investment to make, it's going to be Sal Stewart being a great power hitter, potentially leading the league with 30 and 100 and whatever RBIs, home runs and RBIs. That's the place I'd go.
Let's take a look at the American League Cy Young Award winner. And simply put, to me, this is the Who's Healthy at the End of the Season award. I mean, right now, it is very clear that if Cam Schlittler stays healthy and pitches the rest of the year, Tom, he's going to win the Cy Young. But this is pitching, and you never know. Dylan Cease is having an equally good season or close. He's not going to be on a good team. That could hurt him. Why? I don't know, but it does for some of these voters. Probably not down to the end. I would say you'll know the answer to this question in a month from now. If Schlittler just rolls in August, he's probably the Cy Young Award winner.
I would say the same. I think Cease is the investment opportunity. However, I am wary about Cease because if the Blue Jays are totally out of it, a part of me thinks they'll scale back on Cease and maybe you skip a start, 1 or 2 fewer innings. Therefore, he has 3 or 4 fewer strikeouts. They're investing into Cease long term, right? They signed him in the offseason. This isn't just some pitcher that they have on their roster that is expendable. It's like they want to rebound next year. And in order to rebound and be fully healthy and be ready to go to take on teams in the AL, they need Dylan Cease to be a Cy Young candidate. So to see him skip a start and therefore his stats he also missed a little bit of time. So optically his stats just don't look as good as Cam Schlittler. That's what would hold him back. But I truly think he's capable of winning the award.
Now, this is one where if you can pick the winner, it's the best investment of all of the awards. It's the National League Manager of the Year. It is completely wide open right now. It feels like, Tom, for whatever reason, they don't want to give Pat Murphy the award again, so because he keeps winning it. So if that's the case, I mean, is Walt Weiss really the Manager of the Year? I mean, Ollie Marmol was in this conversation. He is out. Clayton McCullough, he was near the top, then he dropped off. Now he's back here again. Don Mattingly, where has he gone, Tom? Don Mattingly was going to be the Manager of the Year at one point. Do you still think that he is in the mix? Maybe if they come back and make the playoffs, but he has fallen back quite a bit. Dave Roberts, they win 100. He's not even mentioned. Man, like I don't know. Like how about Torey Lovello? Maybe Torey Lovello's name should pop up here. I think this is a wide range of outcomes here, Tom.
It really is. We're looking at what? There's 6 or 7 options, all within 15-ish% of each other. Now, Walt Weiss leading the way makes sense when you just, okay, the Braves, they win a very tough division, at least coming into the year, think, okay, this is going to be one of the toughest divisions in all of baseball. I understand that. To me, the other option, I understand them not giving it to Pat Murphy for Milwaukee. Again, that's a very reasonable thing. I think for some of these other teams, they need to make the playoffs in order for their manager to truly be in the mix to win that award. But Don Mattingly falling so far is a little bit surprising. And frankly, that'd be one of the ones that I have interest in backing. If they can surge and at least get closer to the division, I think that would be impactful considering where the Phillies were and then them coming so close to winning division. That's what put Mattingly in the conversation. I think it could just end up going to Walt Weiss. I don't think that's a fun or exciting outcome, but I think that's what it could be.
I want to do pro baseball's worst record before we close it out because I really like this one. You have Colorado, you have the Angels, but as I mentioned, Tom, you have the A's sitting right there at only 9%. I am telling you now, before the end of the way, that 9% is going to get up to 50%.
Yeah, that 9 could jump drastically, and again, you don't need them to actually finish as the worst team,
right?
But a major move for the A's jumping into the 20s or 30s or we have a 3-way tie would be very rational to see.
Yeah, it feels very, very low for them. They've played the worst baseball of anybody the last couple of months. All right, we'll be back to wrap things up on Pro Baseball Today next.
I'd be looking to sell Louis Varland at this point just because his success has been great, but I'm also worried about how many more opportunities he's going to have given the dynamic of where the Blue Jays sit in the standings. We've heard some rumors that they may be wanting to trade Jeff Hoffman, and it could open up a lot of opportunities for Louis Varland, but there's also nothing pushing the Blue Jays to continuously have out a great player when they're fighting for nothing when it's all said and done.
Pro Baseball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Class is in session. Today, let's talk about the teaser. A teaser is a multi-leg bet where you shift the point spread in your favor. You get better numbers, but every selection has to win. It doesn't matter what you bet if you don't have the insights. Tune into SportsGrid and get ahead of the class.
The dark days are ahead for the Warriors. And when Curry and Kerr and Draymond all leave, what are we going to be looking at that franchise that has been a mainstay of the NBA, the face of the NBA and NBA playoffs for so long? Where are they going to be? So I see no issue with them bringing Draymond back. Why not? You have one last go at things with the trio that they still have there. But I see this as a very long season.
Game time decisions, only on SportsGrid.
Philly had issues elsewhere last year that were on full display in the playoff game against the Niners. They couldn't move the ball all game, and then they got in a 2-minute hurry-up drill, and they walked right down the field. Guys, Tom Brady would do Eagle games. Every single week he'd go, gosh, if they do some hurry-up. And then immediately they'd do some hurry-up, 2-minute warning, and they'd look like a completely different football team.
In-game live, only on SportsGrid.
right, as we wrap things up here, of course, coverage on SportsGrid throughout the day. The big story of the day in sports, James Harden has requested a trade again. No, I'm just kidding. That's what we've been doing for 10 years. No, it is the big trade in baseball. Tariq Skubal ends up going to the Los Angeles Dodgers from the Detroit Tigers, so it is official now. And Skubal will start for the Dodgers next week, and presumably, if he's healthy, and there's no reason to think he would not be, he's going to start game 1 or game 2 in the postseason. I would assume Yamamoto will get that honor because of how good he was last year, but they have Tyler Glass now, and certainly Snell and Ohtani, and enough to get it done. So last night, my buddy Jeff Passan, he goes on social media and says that the trade deadline stuff, it's the lockout, no games next season. If that or does not happen, we don't know. Here is his quote. It's absolutely affecting some teams' approaches. There are owners that believe there won't be a single game played next season, so they're telling GMs to price that into their trade deliberations. Will it have a significant effect? I won't go that far, but does that possibly exist? Absolutely. And that's a really good point that Jeff makes there, too, is because when these negotiations are going on, Tom, it's really important to note here that the people who are in these CBA meetings are the owners and not the GMs. So the GMs, Tom, truthfully, are flying a little blind. They're not sitting in that room and knowing what's going on with the commissioner and the owners as well. So it's kind of like the owners have to sort of tell the GMs, hey, here's really what we think we can and can't do. And then the GMs now have to sit back and say, okay, well, based on that information, how do I end up operating? Look, I'm always going to have some optimism here. You and I have been basically on the same page here. I believe in my heart of hearts that we will not have a single game missed next season. I believe that. Do I believe there's going to be a lockout? Yes. Do I believe there'll be a lockout through the end of the year? I do. But I just can't see these guys not being able to come to an agreement and get this fixed. And Dodgers notwithstanding, with all of the CBA talk and all that stuff, like it has to happen for the sport. There has to be a salary cap, Tom. There has to be a floor. The Dodgers are getting hundreds of millions of dollars from TV contracts. The other teams are not. I mean, I don't know how else there is to say it. Every team cannot go out and do what they're doing. Why does anybody think they can? Why? Because they could be a bad businessman for being a wealthy owner of having $1 billion or $2 billion. So that means that they can do it and lose a fortune. That's not how they got to that point. I don't understand why people can't figure this out.
Yeah, the quote, from Passan about how teams are operating leading up to the deadline absolutely makes sense. There's a million different permutations of what teams are doing, have tried to do, want to do, can't to do, all these things. And yes, the GMs have to say, okay, this is what I'm hearing from the owner. I now have to take this and say, do we want to give up prospects? Do we want to go for a rental player and give up prospects? But if we can't re-sign the rental player based on some changes that happened with the floor or cap, now we gave up the prospects. We can't re-sign that player. Those prospects could have made the team in a year or two, whatever it might be. So it's all over the place. Whether we're going to have a full season or not is still yet to be seen. I am with you. I do firmly believe we will play a full season. I think it'll be 162 games. I'm not saying it's going to start on April 1st. I could see a world where we add a few more doubleheaders in, and we start on
Maybe
April 15th,
so.
April 20th, somewhere we have to add in the doubleheaders to get it back on track, because you don't want the games going into November and December. Obviously, that throws off the following season. But I think we'll have a 162. I don't think we'll have pitchers and catchers on February 10th or February 15th. I don't know if it'll be at that exact time, but we'll have the spring training. What we saw last year from the World Baseball Classic, the momentum that baseball has as a fan base, and people want to enjoy it, that is too much to give up and just throw away. Because the momentum that we've had, Craig, over the past few years with the international games, right? When we saw the Dodgers open up, the fans are hungry for good teams and good players and good storylines, and a lockout would crater all that, and you would lose all the momentum that they built over the past few years. We had the international games in London between the Mets and the Yankees and the Red Sox. Those were amazing, and you can't throw that all away.
Yeah, the good news is that this trade that just happened feels a lot like a big trade where people get pissed in the NFL when the Chiefs get someone, or in the NBA when there's a super team built. And that tells you that the interest of baseball is as back or better in a very big way, just right with the other sports. I mean, in the past, when something like this would happen, Tom, no one would really still talk about baseball. But it is the talking point right now. So, look, certainly I'm in the camp, of course, working on a Major League Baseball broadcast that, don't listen to me. I'm partial to the situation. I hope there's no lockout whatsoever, but I'm going to hope for the best, of course, going into next year. Tom and I will recap the entire trade deadline, all the moves next week on our next edition of Pro Baseball Today. So make sure you tune in next Sunday. Tom, any bold predictions here? 30 seconds to go. Any bold predictions before Monday? Anything significant you want to see happen or may happen?
Casey Mize gets moved.
Casey Mize. All right, there you go. Tom threw it out there. Have a great rest of your Sunday, everyone. We'll see you next week on Pro Baseball Today.